So an NFL analyst believes Coach Prime may have just admitted that Shedeur could potentially be sliding in the draft. Little interesting there. And also the NCAA told Colorado no. I'm going to explain why it does and doesn't make sense and what Colorado should do, even though the NCAA has given down a quote-unquote ruling, and talk about this analyst and their thought process behind Shedeur Sanders potentially dropping and sliding in the draft, that is. So let's dive into that here on the Prime Time for College Football. All right, first story. We're going to jump into the main one here. There was an NFL analyst and former host of the PFF NFL show, now over at the 33rd team, Sam Monson, had dropped a tweet earlier this week when Pro Football Focus had put out an article about, Pro Football Talk had put an article out about Coach Prime talking to Skip Bayless about Shedeur in the draft process. So in the article that Pro Football Talk put out, they talked about Coach Prime talking to Skip Bayless. And when he talked to Skip, he basically talked about, him and Shedeur check in on a regular basis around the draft and teams. And then this is what he said in a quote about Shedeur. He said, Shedeur has told me he's talking to me intently about all the visits he had with all the teams. So I know where his heart is. I know where he wants to go, Sanders said. If it's New York, it's New York. If it's Tennessee, if it's Cleveland, if it's still the Raiders, if it's New Orleans, if it's any of those teams that are seeking a quarterback, I'm happy with it, man, because I know what he's going to do to the organization. And now the crux behind the thought that Prime may be admitting that he thinks that or could be seeing Shedeur could be sliding is the rumors have been going around that Prime is going to help steer where Shedeur ends up playing in the NFL, that he's going to find a way or have some sort of a hand or control into where Shedeur plays. And Prime has never actually said that, but he's talked about certain teams that he would like him to play for. He's mentioned, and most of the teams he's talked about are all the ones that he's played for himself, right? So he understands the landscape of the organization. He probably still knows the owners. They're probably still the same owners from when he played, or the descendants of it, like the Raiders or whatnot. He never played for the Raiders, but he's had a relationship with Al Davis as well as Mark Davis. So Prime has had relationships in some capacity with the schools with the teams that he said that he would like Shedeur to go to. Well, Sam dropped this tweet. And I thought it was kind of funny. I thought it was something worth talking about because I see it. He said, okay, now I can buy that his stock might be sliding just because Prime has now kind of opened it up to any team that needs a quarterback. He hasn't really made any limits. But Prime has never actually limited or said any limits about where Shedeur should play. He's really been open about it. And right now, PFF on their current, even though Sam had just left PFF back in August, that's where he's both tied to. He's there for 17 years. But back, the most recent one mock draft for PFF has Shedeur going to the Cleveland Browns at number 2. Now, we talked about this in the last video where we kind of think that Myles Garrett may have kind of leaked that the Browns have talked to him about drafting Shedeur or adding, him to the team. And that would be a good pickup, in my personal opinion, it would be a big pickup for the Browns. They could use someone of Shedeur's mentality to help them with the basically moving on from the Deshaun Watson experiment and get someone that's going to be an organization changer. And that's what Shedeur is. He's told us this and said that's his focus. He says that he can be that guy. And I think he can as well. I'm sold on Shedeur being an organizational changer just because he's got that very high football IQ and he's really just, a pocket guy, pocket quarterback, and he's dedicated to the game. You've seen it. But I thought that was funny that Sam posted that because I think that that's what some other analysts are thinking as well around Shedeur. And that's why we're talking about it. It's because of Prime having such not just his personality, but the fact that he has his own gravity, right? He attracts so much that everyone thinks that he's going to make sure to deter or control as much of this process, just as the Mannings did for Eli when he got drafted. Everyone believes that that's what what Prime will probably do. Now, to me, it's going to be between Cleveland and New York. He's going to either be a Giant or he's going to be a Brown. Only makes sense that one of those two snatches him up, and I don't think he slips out of the top 5 at all in the draft. But let me know what y'all think. Hop in those comments. I want to hear your thoughts. And so earlier this week as well, a couple of days ago, Coach Prime and Coach Fran Brown over there at Syracuse put in an application for them to go play a spring practice against each other and, have it more of a, a scrimmage with opposite teams. And Prime laid out the reasons why, they get tired of tackling each other. I mean, you've seen this recently. Oklahoma State head coach Mike Gundy has said that he would love to bring back Bedlam against Oklahoma, but not that it would count. They want to do it as a scrimmage in state. And so that has been that type of conversation as well. But Colorado Syracuse would be kind of a huge spectacle, mainly because Syracuse would have to travel down, be down for a few days, train there at Colorado, and then they would actually play the game. And so it would be a lot more logistically, it would be a lot of work to get her done, while at the same time, it would be, it would be a huge spectacle. It would be on television. Prime's going to be able to get on TV. He's already got the pro day on TV. He's going to make it happen in that big capacity. And so they did the application, and on Thursday in a video call, the oversight committee said no. And this is the reasons why. They said for 3 reasons. Number 1, the late timing. As most teams have already planned out their spring practices, that means that nobody else would have an opportunity to do the same thing that Coach Prime and them has done. More so saying that if others had this idea that they wouldn't be able to execute on it because they probably didn't try and it's past that time. The second thing is the recruiting advantage that both Colorado and Syracuse will receive, because they'll be able to put something big on, and probably both would be able to invite a whole bunch of recruits and prospects to the game. So that kind of gives them a little bit of an unfair advantage. And then the last thing they said is the potential academic impact for athletes missing classes to participate in practices and in scrimmage. So my thought is this: the NCAA actually coming out and doing something for the first time in years. It's the 60s since the last time we've actually seen the NCAA enforce something that they should have enforced a long time ago. I get where the NCAA is coming with this. The biggest problem I had with the idea of it is they're going to have to miss school to do this. This wouldn't be during spring break or anything like that. Whatever team will be traveling to the other opposition would have to miss school for at least 2 to 3 days in preparation for it. Or they would at least have to miss the Friday to fly out and then get acclimated to the area and play the next day. Similar to what they do in season. And so I totally understood why the NCAA is saying that, and especially because of the timing. It's so last minute. If Coach Prime and them had made this plan in December, had set this in December, if they wanted to do that in the spring, I think they would have got the approval. And then they could have got it done. Now, outside of that, I'll say this. Mentioned at the beginning of the video. What would I have done? I'd still do it. Screw the NCAA. I'd go do it anyway. I don't think the NCAA is going to do anything to stop them. I don't think the NCAA is going to do anything to reprimand them for it. So, in my personal opinion, why not go do it? Who's going to stop you? What are they going to do? Fine you? How would the NCAA actually enforce this? Answer me that. To me, I go do it. I will go ahead and make it happen and just see what happens in the background. Let me know what y'all think. You think Prime and them should go ahead and just do it anyway? And then, ask for forgiveness later? Because that's personally what I would do. Want to hear your thoughts. All right. We'll talk. Spring practice is going on. There's been a lot of stuff dropping on the sites. Everybody's been dropping some notes on it. It sounds like some big stuff's happening there in practice. So the quarterback battle is still happening. The secondary, there's a lot of questions. We'll dive into a little bit of that over the next couple of weeks as we prepare for spring practice. But, thank y'all for pulling up, and we'll chop it up soon.